When you look at Formula 1's 70+ year legacy, you quickly realize that behind the speed, glamour, and high-tech engineering lie moments of sheer unpredictability. While many races follow the script of dominance or strategy playing out as expected, there have been a handful of Grand Prix where everything just went off the rails in ways nobody could ever predicted. And when that happens, you don't just get a race, you get history. Let's take a dive into some of the most chaotic, bizarre, and unforgettable finishes the sport has ever witnessed, and ask ourselves, were these moments just outliers, or is unpredictability the true DNA of F1? If you were a Michael Schumacher fan in 1998, the British Grand Prix might have left you rubbing your eyes in disbelief. Mika Häkkinen had been dominating that season, and at Silverstone, he looked primed for yet another win. But what unfolded in the final laps was nothing short of cinematic. Schumacher had overtaken Alexander Wurz under safety car conditions on lap 43, a clear violation. The FIA slapped a 10-second stop-go penalty on him, but due to a series of miscommunications and delays, Ferrari wasn't sure whether it was a time penalty or a mandatory pit lane punishment. So what did Schumacher do? In a move that had never been seen before, and hasn't been replicated since, he dove into the pits on the final lap, served the stop-go penalty, and won the race in the process by crossing the finish line inside the pit lane. McLaren immediately protested, hoping to have Schumacher disqualified or demoted behind Häkkinen, but the International Court of Appeal upheld the result, and all fingers pointed at the race stewards for procedural chaos. It was one of those days where Schumacher's tactical mind beat the stopwatch and the rulebook. The 2003 Brazilian Grand Prix was an absolute masterclass in chaos. It started with rain, got worse with crashes, and ended with a winner being crowned 6 days after the race. Early in the race, Jordan made a bold strategic call. On lap 7, Giancarlo Fisichella pitted for fuel and tyres under the safety car, a move that seemed odd at first but turned out to be genius. Team strategist Gary Anderson calculated that Fisichella could make it past 75% race distance, the minimum required to declare 4 points if the race were red flagged. And in Interlagos, with rain hammering the circuit, that was a real possibility. After several massive shunts, including Mark Webber's high-speed crash and Fernando Alonso's ploughing into the debris, the race was red flagged. Initially, Kimi Räikkönen was declared the winner based on a countback to lap 53, but upon review, Fisichella had just crossed the line to start lap 56 before the red flag, meaning the countback should have been to lap 54. Cue one of the strangest ceremonies in F1 history. Fisichella was named the actual winner 6 days later and received his trophy in a private event before the next race. It was Fisichella's first career win, and perhaps the most convoluted victory in F1 history. What do you get when you combine turbocharged engines, aggressive driving, and questionable fuel calculations? You get the 1985 San Marino Grand Prix, a race where cars were literally running out of fuel one by one. With 4 laps to go, Ayrton Senna was leading for Lotus, but the punishing pace had taken its toll, and he ran out of fuel. Stefan Johansson in his Ferrari inherited the lead, only to run dry himself a lap later. Finally, Alain Prost crossed the line first, but even he didn't make it back to Parc Fermé. His McLaren ran out of fuel on the cool-down lap. Prost's win didn't last long. Post-race scrutineering revealed his car was 2 kilograms underweight, leading to disqualification. Elio De Angelis, who had driven a steady and strategic race, was suddenly declared the winner. Thierry Boutsen, who ran out of fuel just before the finish, pushed his car across the line to claim P3. If that doesn't scream chaos, what does? Few races have ever captured the raw emotion of the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix. Felipe Massa had done everything right, put his Ferrari on pole, dominated the race, and crossed the finish line in P1. His family was already celebrating. The crowd in Sao Paulo erupted. And then, heartbreak. Lewis Hamilton, who needed just P5 to secure the championship, was in 6th on the final lap. Rain had returned late in the race, and Timo Glock, running on dry tyres, had jumped positions as others switched to intermediates. But Glock's gamble backfired. On the final corner of the final lap, Hamilton surged past the struggling Toyota and snatched 5th place and the world title by a single point. It was one of the most emotional moments in Formula 1 history. Massa, a hero in his homeland, had the championship in his grasp for mere seconds. Meanwhile, a 23-year-old Hamilton became the youngest world champion at the time, etching his name into the sport forever. If you thought teammates' rivalries had cooled off in the modern era, the 2016 Austrian Grand Prix was a brutal reminder that nothing in Formula 1 comes easy, even between teammates. Nico Rosberg was leading the championship and had made his way through the field after a grid penalty. Lewis Hamilton, after a slow pit stop, found himself chasing down his teammates in the final laps. On the last lap, the two went wheel to wheel into turn 2 and collided. Hamilton emerged ahead and crossed the line to win. Rosberg, with a damaged front wing, limped home in 4th. The stewards handed Rosberg a 10-second penalty for causing the collision, intensifying an already bitter intra-team rivalry. It was a race that showed the world that Mercedes might be dominating the constructors' title, but peace within the garage was a distant dream. Damon Hill's 1997 season with Arrows had been mostly forgettable, until Hungary. In a car that had no business being at the front, Hill qualified P3 and took the lead after passing Michael Schumacher on lap 11. What followed was a masterclass in underdog excellence. Hill built a massive gap, leading comfortably until just 3 laps from the end. Then disaster struck. A hydraulic failure left his gearbox stuck in 3rd gear. With Jacques Villeneuve closing rapidly, Hill fought valiantly but was ultimately passed on the final lap. He finished 2nd, but his drive was so extraordinary that even Villeneuve admitted Hill deserved the win. It was the kind of moment that reminds fans why they love the sport: heartbreak, brilliance, and the cruel edge of mechanical failure. After 1,296 laps across 22 races, the title came down to one final, extraordinary lap. For 2 hours under the Abu Dhabi lights, Lewis Hamilton looked set to secure a record-breaking 8th world title. But on the 1,297th lap of the season, in the most dramatic of finishes, it was Max Verstappen who crossed the line as world champion. This was a battle between two generational talents: Verstappen relentless, aggressive, supremely fast; Hamilton clinical, composed, still at the very peak of his powers. Over the course of the season, they pushed each other to the absolute limit. There was contact, controversy, and moments of brilliance. They entered the final race level on points. Only one could win. At lights out, Hamilton took control, fast off the line, strong through turn 1, and with Red Bull unable to respond on strategy, he seemed destined to finish what he started. Even a heroic stint of defensive driving from Sergio Perez, called a legend by Verstappen, couldn't halt the Mercedes driver's march. Then, with 5 laps to go, Nicholas Latifi crashed at turn 14. A safety car was deployed, and everything changed. With the title in the balance, race director Michael Massa faced a critical decision. First came the message: lapped cars would not be allowed to unlap themselves, a move designed to ensure there was enough time for a green flag finish. Then came the U-turn. Only the 5-lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen were allowed through, and the safety car was called in immediately, not after the following lap, as standard procedure might dictate. The final lap, Verstappen, now directly behind Hamilton and on fresh soft tyres, seized the moment. Into turn 5 he dove, taking the lead. With superior grip, he held firm through the following corners. Hamilton had no reply. Mercedes were furious. They launched 2 protests, one regarding lapped cars, another alleging Verstappen overtook under the safety car. Both were dismissed by the stewards. Toto Wolff was apoplectic. No, Michael. No, Michael. That was so not right. Hamilton, stunned, said only, "This is getting manipulated, man." Red Bull celebrated. Verstappen was world champion for the first time, but the fallout was immediate. Mercedes opted not to appeal further, but the sense of injustice lingered. The FIA launched an investigation into how the finale was handled. Massa would later be removed from his role. So, what do these races tell us? That Formula 1 is, at its core, beautifully unpredictable. From fuel mishaps to flag-wavering blunders, from legal disputes to final lap heartbreaks, the sport never stops surprising us. And in a time where technical perfection is the norm, it's these strange, human, and often chaotic moments that stand out the most. Let us know which of these finishes blew your mind the most, and if you think Formula 1 could ever return to that kind of glorious madness in the modern era. And hey, if you like this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe.